All right, so today we're talking about what it means to be an American. And yes, if you already feel that bristling feeling on the back of your neck that you might have some feelings about this, you're definitely going to have some feelings about this. I did. We all did. Enjoy. Cheers. Gents.
Cheers. Boom.
Got a nice glass of wine?
Nice glass of wine. For this conversation, it's going to be necessary because I already know there's one thing I'm going to say, and the both of you are probably going to have a
fit. I'm very excited now. Like, do tell. Like, you can't. Jon, hurry. Start it.
Okay, so we'll jump right into the topic. This week's topic is, what does it mean to be an American? Everything going on, especially just in America, us living here. I think we're all seeing all the values of what we have been told for years of what it meant to be American, especially us living and being raised in America compared to people who come to America, the outside perspective versus the inside perspective. And now with everything kind of coming up, how do we choose to be American? How do we participate as an American? So we can start off. Brandon, you want to go right off? When
it comes up, you'll know. When it comes up, I will leave you in suspense. The slow game, baby. That's the foreplay, right?
It's a slow
game. It's a slow game.
Right time. Jon up then, because Jon, you're here. You're starting it.
All right, I'll start it. I mean, to be American, I mean, it's the land of the free. So I've always thought that meant that any opportunity, anything kind of lifestyle you wanted to create for yourself is possible, especially in this country. There's rights, there's freedoms, there's things in place that allow us to create the lifestyle we want. Now, granted, over the past couple of months, let alone a couple of years, and for a while, we've known that there's been a lot of kind of people in control that have held some of those restrictions back. And so as an American, I feel like doing my part to contribute to that overall like image of what we see of America is like the land of opportunity, the ability that anyone can come here and create the lifestyle that they want for themselves, as long as they're contributing to society and at the same time, not doing it at the detriment of others.
The interesting thing for me about this question is that it's such a genuine question, and I know where it comes from. And the interesting thing is, like, my answer, and I asked for disagreement, so like we'll see what happens. My answer tends to be, you are an American if you are born here or a naturalized citizen. And that's the only prerequisites. And I know that that's not what you mean when you ask, but I think that that's what people need to get through their fucking heads. There is nothing else to it. That means you're American. You don't like, let's talk about this crazy tweet storm that came up. I mean, like talking about I'm the biggest patriot from our president. I'm not talking about one way or the other, whether you do or don't like policies, anything other than being patriotic does not mean wearing a fucking flag on the 4th of July. It doesn't mean, like, we've got to stop with this changing definitions to just fit whatever fits. Being an American means you were born here or you are a naturalized citizen. Like that's what it means. And everything else falls under this umbrella of things that people in America do or don't do, the problems with America and with Americans' policies. But like the immediacy of that question for me is just, I think that almost making it a question is a huge problem that I see. It's people thinking that there's a version of what makes an American. They're fucking not. This is it. Do you fit these requirements? Cool. That's it. Moving on. Next song, Tenacious D reference. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I'm going to pass it on.
It's a lifestyle thing, right? I think being American is a lifestyle. Like it's a kind of a marriage of your two ideas, right? There's the natural thing that comes with being born here, being a citizen of this country. But then I think even lifestyle, because I think about when I meet people from Europe, right, in particular, they're from England or they're from London, and they say, God, you're so American. Not because I was born here, but because of my lifestyle choices, right? The way I talk, the things that I like, football versus their football, I think being American is that it's a lifestyle thing, right? It is a way of living. It's a way of being. To me, it's the equivalent of hip hop, right? Like if you come from a hip hop culture, you have a swagger about you. You have a way that you talk and a way that you move. That's like, you're not jazz, you're not blues, you're not classical, you're hip hop. And I think being American is the equivalent of being hip hop in the world. When everyone else is either, Beethoven or whatever the case may be. That's what it is to me. It's a way of life. It's a way of being, All
right. So I'll counter that. What with that? And I understand what you're saying. And again, like, I see that and I agree with that to a degree, but the problem for me lies in then what version of that lifestyle, like who decides what is now not hip hop and what still fits, but isn't. Like, there's traditional hip hop, there's like OG hip hop, there's new, like, it's all
Sure.
Technically, like, I'm there with you, but there's certain subsections of that then get passed off, or not passed off, because that's not what I'm trying to say, that get kind of relegated to something else by somebody else.
And that's what I'm saying about this whole, like, if you're American and someone from another country or another culture says you're American, it's because that's become their depiction of it means to be American.
Okay,
right?
I totally get that.
And they call us cowboys, and a lot of people, their references are so old school, so outdated. Like, I have a friend of mine from Canada, and I was in Texas about 2 years ago, and she was like, "Do you guys still ride horses to the market?" And oddly, I wanted to be like, "Are you kidding me? It's 2000 whatever." But literally that same day, I was going to Walmart, and there was a black dude on his just like getting like at the stoplight, and I was like, "Yeah, it's kind of a thing. Like, we are cowboys. We still have that kind of like Clint Eastwood, John Wayne way of life about us." And I think a lot of people still see us that way. The same way we see, like kind of like British people, like this very James Bond, tea at noon, whatever the case may be. These are all, I guess you could say, these are like the stereotypes, if you will, right? And unfortunately, I think we do fit a lot of the stereotypes people have of Americans and the way we live and the way we do things.
100%. I mean, John, you let us off. It's back to you. I'm not even going to say anybody's name from now on. I'm just going to fucking spotlight it. Just be like, go.
But I think this is the closest to a disagreement we've had, by the way. I'm enjoying it.
It's so close. We're trying, man. We are trying.
Which is what I like. I felt like this topic might kind of, we'd see different opinions coming out here. Which is the next question is something that I see different opinions a lot, is what are your thoughts on voting? Do you think voting matters? And then do you think, what are your thoughts on voting in the U.S.?
Do it. Just, I'm gonna go. See, didn't even say my name. Just spotlight myself. Fucking do it. I'll say this: if you don't vote, you can't complain. If you don't, let me rephrase that. Because of the disenfranchisement of a shit ton of voters, if you don't try to vote, then you can't complain. And more importantly, I think the larger thing is engaging in knowing who you're voting for and why. Like, what are their policies? I will say this, and this may be, who knows, this may be our first disagreement. I'm so excited, you guys. Like, I literally just registered to vote in the new state that I'm a current resident of, and apparently will be for a minute. Thanks, 2020. You fucking. But I just registered to vote, and they were like, "Okay, we only recognize the two-party system." And I was like, "So what do I do?" And they were like, "Well, you just pick one of the two parties." And I was like, "No." She was like, "Oh, okay. Well, you can say undeclared." And I was like, "But I'm declaring that I don't want to be one of those two parties." And I think it's an interesting larger thing. Like, we've gotten into this kind of myopia of just looking central. Like, I'm going to play for this team or I'm on this team. It is one or the other, and there's no middle ground. But the truth is, most of us lie somewhere in that middle ground. and we're just being forced to pick teams. Like, so I say vote. For one, it's your right, but it's also our responsibility. And I feel like a couple of, maybe time is a flat circle at this point. So President Obama was doing this speech, and he was talking about how much local elections are, how important they are, and how they make so much more of the policy decision on a local level than you think. And that being informed about who your judges are, who your county clerks are, who your local establishment is as important as your senators and your representatives and the president. But most of us just turn out, if even that, for just the big elections. And I think we're finding right now, thanks to this kind of overhaul of political advocacy, I guess you would say, that this matters. And I think we are all becoming more involved in the smaller things. But yes, please vote. Please. Your vote is your voice. I'm not the first person to say that, but please do it. Somebody else. Just gonna go here because you're next.
Well, gents, I've never voted, and I don't have the passion to.
Okay.
And I think for me, and this is something I thought about the other day, I blinked and I was 31.
Right?
I blinked an eye and I was 31. And I've missed Clinton, Bush, I think it was Bush, Obama, Trump. So I think we're about 6 elections. Maybe I'm missing one in there. Well, no, I wasn't even old enough to vote for those. Yeah. So let's say since the time I was old enough to vote, maybe let's say 3 elections, right? Three. We'll say 3 elections, right? Mm-hmm. My life has been, and this is because of my experience, my life has been this, trying to find the right word for it. I don't want to say a bubble, or maybe I want to say a capsule.
Hey.
My entire life has felt like a capsule that was not impacted or at effect by politics or government or exterior forces, right? I remember a lot of my life has been my mom and my survival. So who the president, who the senator and the governor didn't matter because I was homeless and lived in a shelter. So politics weren't really on my priority list. And in reality, and this is really, I've never even said this out loud before. I think the reason I don't care about it is because I cared about eating. I cared about having hot water. I cared about having clothes on my back. I cared about those things. And as a child, my thought process was never around, well, Clinton has this in place that if you get on welfare, this is going to be here. And then you have, 3 years to get a job. And then, I think it was the work to air, the work to something program. My mom told me about it later. And I thought it was pretty effective. But once I kind of was old enough to even recognize that all of that shit was really important, I hadn't gotten out of my mentality of I got to take care of me. And that's where I stand with voting. And Colt, real shit, in fairness, I don't complain about Trump.
I know that's the irony of this whole thing. I've never heard you once talk about anything political. And I'm so sorry, John, I'm gonna pop back to you in 2 seconds. The thing is, though, what you just said, I love that because I didn't vote until I was out of college. I also did that because, but I mean, and I feel you on that in the most genuine deep way, and you know why. I didn't
Yeah.
have fucking time. Like that. What the fuck you? What are you fucking talking about? Who gives a shit who's president? I don't want this to happen anymore. Like, I'm dealing with what's here.
What's here?
And I understand that.
Yeah.
And so I will say, I will amend my previous statement. Voting is a necessity once it becomes something that is within your purview. You know what I mean? Voting is a necessity once it becomes a necessity.
Wow.
Voting is a necessity to me because I am part of the Broadway community. I'm part of the arts community. I'm part of the dance community. And I've watched this administration tear down right after right that my fucking friends and family fought for and are trying to undo so much good in the world for something that cannot be explained. And I because that is now that I am fortunate enough to live a life where I am allowed by the universe, by God, to live free and as myself, I know I can eat and I know I can feed other people. And that is the fucking blessing that's been put on me now. So now it's my responsibility, I feel, to move on to that next level and not just survive here. I'm moving to land of milk and honey. Like I want Ephesians 3:20. Like, you know what I mean? I'm so sorry. I'm abundantly, exceedingly abundantly above God. I will quote it. You know, like, come on. I want everything, and I want to be able to give that everything. And the problem is, I don't fucking vote.
Yeah.
If the millions of me's out there, let's just hyper categorize, hyper generalize me. If the 5'11" bearded straight white men don't get out there and vote, well, first off, that's the terrible. Like, that's probably help. But if I don't, I am not helping my friends that are hurting.
Yeah.
I'm not loving them in a way that I have the ability to. So when you're right, when we just didn't have food, when my mom was crying because there just wasn't enough money to pay for food at the grocery store and was putting back the fucking cereal that was in a bag anyway because we couldn't afford it. Like, no, obviously didn't give a shit. And then didn't give a shit for a while, but now it's my responsibility. Now I owe it to some people.
I love that. I know, John, you're going to go. I love that. And I feel charged to, I guess, step up to the plate. Now, what I will say is I've continually over the years educated myself, right, about the history. I wanted to learn more about this dynamic of how do we become the Republican Party? How do we become the Democratic Party? Why is Obama the way he is? Why is he the most finessing motherfucker that I've ever seen, but also labeled as one of the biggest liars that has ever been a president? Because that's part of being a good salesman, right? A good salesman sells you on the belief of something. Now, I think he did deliver, and we can really, I mean, I don't want to go for too much of a tangent, but I've implored myself and told myself, hey, study, learn, don't be ignorant to it. You may not vote, but like realize that is a part of the world and a part of life. But what you've added to this now is, now that I am thriving, right? Now that I am saying, God, thank you for getting me to the land of milk and honey, and that you've done exceedingly abundantly far above I could ask or imagine. It's my responsibility to now look at the authorities and the powers that be and respect the process that people have fought for me to have, and to then say, okay, let me get to a poll.
I love that. I fucking love that. Very cool. We're terrible at disagreeing. We disagreed for a second, and then we're like, no, I see your point. I get you.
But John has to go now, so let's see what John has to say.
You better say something fucked up.
Well, it's interesting because I have similar backgrounds. I tap into both of yours because when I grew up, like, I had similar, Brandon, like, we were trying to figure out how to get food on the table. We were figuring out how to just get by. So figuring out who the president wasn't a priority. And then I fell into the trap of being told, like, voting doesn't matter, so there's no point of trying. Like, they're gonna do whatever they want to do. And so I believed that for a few years, and like that was, I had a friend really check me to be like pointing stuff out. I'm like, dude, it's like a message to the people who don't want you to vote because they need certain things to go a certain way. So less people vote, they can get what they want. And one of the big things that opened my eyes, especially this year, and just the power, like why I brought this topic, and I think the importance of voting, was when I believe it was Kentucky, I forget which state, but they took out from like over 200 polling places, they brought it down to something like 6 or something like that.
Yep.
And I just remember reading these articles where I was just like, if voting didn't really matter, there would be no need to do that. If they really was getting the public to believe that voting mattered, and when it didn't really matter, keep the polling places, let it all happen, and then let them think that they voted and it didn't matter. But for them to actually strip away the ability for thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people from properly voting or getting the ability to vote, there's something said with that. And I think, like as Colt was saying, is like there's things, every administration that's gone in. I mean, I'm a Obama fan and everything like that, but even there's stuff that he's done that I disagree. And then Bush has done stuff that I disagree. I mean, my mom was a Clinton fan, and there's stuff I disagree with him. Every president has to do stuff that one way or another people are going to disagree. But especially with what's going on in today's world with this administration, it's a like eye opener of just like, we have to get involved, because it's almost like a blatant disrespect to the people who worked so hard to create this country. And like you both have mentioned, like we're at a place now, we have rights that we're able to kind of create the life we want. And there's a lot of people before us that fought to get there. And now in a matter of a couple of years, this administration has stripped so much, and their goal is to strip even more of these abilities and freedoms that we have. And so I think that's voting. I've now come to the place where like voting does matter, and it is a way we contribute. And like as Brandon said, I think the other, and both of you kind of tapped on, is like we need to do our research. I think a lot of people just, who are you voting for? Okay, I'm gonna go vote for that. But then it's contributing, but we also need to know what we're voting for, because the more research we do, we start understanding like, oh wait, now I know. Now that's where I think when you do research at a presidential level, it eventually peaks you into local elections and everything like that, because you start realizing some of the decisions aren't done by the president, they're done by local, and these are things that matter. And so it becomes, the more research we do, the more we start realizing like, oh, there's something that I can contribute and I can be a part of this.
Helping hand, like I have an ability here. Sure. Well, you just hit on something that is so important. I had a really interesting conversation almost 4 years ago with somebody that I'm very close to, and I was talking to them on the phone, and I was like, just talking about, the upcoming presidential election. And they were like, I'm definitely going to vote for Trump. And I was like, oh, okay. Why? And they were like, I just don't like Hillary. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, like what about her policies do you not like? And they were like, I just don't like them. I don't like her. Like, don't trust her. I was like, okay. Do you know anything about any of her policies that she's putting forward? Do you know anything about like overall what she's done? I'm not saying she's a saint, so that's not the point. But the question, and we ended up having a 4-hour long, I was driving between Vegas and California. I was coming out to LA for something, and I literally, it may have been one of my auditions for Dirty Dancing. I literally was like driving out, and the whole time I just drilled home, I don't care who you vote for. I care that you don't know why you're doing it, other than it's red or blue colors. Like that's what we've been reduced to. And I agree, John, like once you get involved, you start realizing this thing. Like, let's think back real quick. Let's jump in the way back machine and talk about what used to happen before 1,000 fucking channels of television and 1,000 streaming services and all of that. What did everybody do? They gathered around and listened to the news on the radio, and they listened to people talk about genuine issues, and people were more informed. Now, granted, again, Brandon, this speaks to the larger thing that you kind of also touched on, which is some people, like a lot of communities did that. A lot of communities didn't fucking do that because they didn't have the option to do that, because radios weren't in their homes. They're like, You know what I mean? But as a general society, I think that I was thinking about this yesterday. I was out for a run and I was like in it. I was fucking like just like right in the fucking pocket. And my brain started exploding because I don't know why I got to this thought. I just finished an audiobook, so I guess I was on some kind of mental trip. And I was thinking about why I used to act so fucking stupid. Like I used to think if I wanted to be smart, that was just so lame. Like smart was gross. Like that was ridiculous. Who wants to, you don't have to use big words and like know things. It was this whole like, what are you trying to be so much better than me? Like, why do you think you're fucking better than me because you're smart? And it wasn't about that. And I think that that's a larger thing in society that we've kind of moved towards. And I know I was a part of that. And until somebody called me out on it, I think that's kind of part of what's going on with the voting process and with American politics, is that a lot of us have stepped out of it because we've done what we all did. We were like, I don't even have fucking time for that. Well, that was apparently the goal. The goal was to get those of us who are already hurting to not even think about it and to think we don't matter. We do. So, sorry, that came up in my brain yesterday. And I was like, I think that's a larger systemic problem in America, is that we, as Americans, and talk about the way that people look at us, Brandon, like, you know, like Pink used to say this thing when we were on tour. She would always talk about how Americans are, I think we're 35th, and it's obviously changed. It's been a minute since I was on tour, but she would say something to the degree of, we're like 35th with education, we're 16th with public health, or 45th. Like we're all the way down. You know where we're number one? The only place we're number one? Confidence. Yeah. How fucking like so
proud to be an American.
Right?
I'm free. Like I'm stand up. Like we're proud. We are a proud nation. Proud, very proud. Sometimes about what I don't know, but I think we're a pretty proud nation.
Yeah, I would agree.
Well, I think part of that, it leads to this ego. I mean, there's so much, when you think of like what it means to be American, especially the people who fought for so many of these rights compared to the people who first started it and what originally was started. And like, I think now what's been great is seeing how many people are actually doing research into history, and like so much is being challenged nowadays of like, what was the original motive? Like, why did they actually do that in that moment? And is it really tied to where it is now? And that's an amazing thing. I think what makes America compared to a lot of countries, quote unquote, great, is the fact that we have the ability to change. It is up to the people to adapt. And like a lot of countries, in senses, it's like a dictated on how things move. America has a very loud voice. Like Americans are known to be very vocal in their thoughts. And I think that's, if we can all rally to put our thoughts together and really contribute and to the right causes, we can create the change that overall can make the country an amazing country. But like Colt was saying, those statistics, I was researching the other night. I mean, America is not even in the top 10 for a lot of the major categories around the world, and yet we call ourselves so great. And I think a lot of it is it's this image that we think we're great, or there's an image of what America used to look like, or I don't know. It's kind of like how Brandon said. It's like I don't think a lot of people know what great America really looks like.
Right.
I think they just have this philosophy or this idea of like, oh, I had this freedom and I didn't deal with this. And it's like, okay, well, if you don't want to deal with that, you have to understand the things underneath that
ramifications.
Yeah.
That if you take that away. And so I think I'm just glad that we're seeing all these. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, our country's going through a hard time right now, but it's good that we're addressing these issues, because I think for a long time they kind of just went unnoticed, or like it was a taboo to talk about it. Like I remember when I was young, for a long time, I never talked about politics or religion. My mom was the one who opened my eyes. She's like, you know who are two people who don't want you to talk about religion and politics? I'm like, who? She's like, religion and politics. They don't want you talking about what they're doing. So it's like they're propaganda.
Oh,
I think. Are we doing this? Are we doing
Jon Gorski over here?
There we go. I
One more we can question, the more we can
Wow.
ask ourselves. Like, and it's even, you look at the media, like, I mean, we can do a whole nother day conversation on like the quote unquote conspiracies, but it's like you look at the media and where the media puts the attention, what's happening and that's not getting attention. And like, I remember there's been a certain few moments in the last 11 years I've lived there, but I remember the last 8 years where, for example, I remember that when gay marriage was legalized across the US, amazing moment. But I remember waking up that morning and going to my roommates and be like, do you guys even know this was up for vote? Or like this was coming? Like someone was working on this? And they're like, no. And I remember asking multiple friends that day, like, did you even know this was happening this week, or this was even an option or something? And not one person was like, yeah, they've been talking about it for months or whatever. Nothing. Going back to my brother, I'm like, dude, something doesn't seem right. Like, I'm very happy this happened. It's something very good for our society, but there's something that's not connecting. And that was the night that, like, Obama signed the TPP Act, and there's a lot of controversy with that, but it was quietly signed. And that's why I was like, I think that a lot of the awareness and a lot of what we're asking is we need to be more involved. We need to look in. It's not saying we have to know every single topic, but whether it be immigration, whether it be prison, whether it be Black Lives Matter or racism, and whatever the topic is, like, we should all choose something and be involved in that and contribute to trying to create a better America. And I think that's the disconnect for a lot of people is like, I think for a long time, we just expected the government to kind of set it up for us. The government's going to make us look good. And now we're coming to realize it's not that way anymore.
Yeah.
I think when these topics that, as you both have been talking, it kind of hit me, but if you were to look at what are some of the main topics right now that I think we're focusing on in the world, one of the main ones being mental health, right? And therapy and healing. If you were to scale it, right, I think America as a nation has to do some healing work, right? Just like how we talk about going to therapy, talk about when you're abused at 5, or talk about that thing that happened at 12. The nation has to address in a healthy manner, and someone has to come up with, or people have to come up with solutions that I don't think are biased for their agenda. That's my issue, right? Like, is this solution feeding your agenda so you get closer to your goal that benefits your particular group or party? To me, you can call it idealistic if you will, but it has to be for the greater good of everyone, right? Not just Blacks, not just whites, not just immigrants, not just gays, not just whoever. I think we have to, this is my own opinion about it, right? Because when you go to a therapist or you go do healing work or you work on yourself, it's for the greater good for not just you, but anyone you come into contact with. Because I've worked on my abandonment issues, because I've worked on my rejection or my addiction, I am now a better person and a better contributor to the world because I'm healed. And I think this nation as a whole will be a better contributor to the world and other countries and other nations and other populations. If we don't, I don't think we need, like we talked about this with Will Smith, I don't think we need to be poking the wound, right? And saying, this sucks, it sucks, America sucks, this sucks. No, there was a time and a period that no one now has control over. No one has control over what happened 400 years ago. No one has control over those ships coming over here. No one has control over those slaves or whoever, or the Indians losing their land and losing that battle and then coming over with guns and whatever. No one has control over what's happened, but what we do have control over, and I think this lends to your point, Cole, and to John's, even the whole reason we're having this conversation is we can't control what happened then, but we do have control over what happens now and what happens moving forward. And we have to dream again. We have to have that same kind of, because America is based off of a dream, right? I think we have to dream, we have to re-envision what's possible in this place that is free, that does have a lot of freedoms, that's not dictated. You can pray where you want, say what you want, do what you want, marry who you want, walk where you want, outside of lockdown. But we have to dream again and re-envision like what is, and not based off of politics and who the leader is, right? I think the leader can drive it, but as a nation, we have to decide for ourselves what is the healthiest thing for us moving forward, not going back and saying, you're going to have to pay, you got to pay, you got to pay, you got to pay, you got to pay.
I get that. I think the hard thing though is that everybody has a very different version of what America should be going forward. Like let's take the political stance of the current administration. Make America great again. I think this is a really great thing to spotlight because somebody and someone much smarter than me, and I don't know who, talked about this before the election, which is, when was America so great? Like, let's look at it. Depending on who you are, what was it so great in the 70s during the Vietnam War? Like, was it so great during the 50s and 60s and the Civil Rights Movement? Was it so great in the 40s during World War II? Like, there are always people at the bottom of the fucking barrel that it wasn't so fucking great for. Like, we weren't so fucking great that we think we were. So it's great to pander to a base and make it seem like, hey, remember when everything was like Smallville, or like what's that movie? It's like black and white, and then
Pleasantville.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's what we all, when it says "Make America Great Again," there's a huge contingent of people that go, "Oh, that's all he's talking about. He's talking about, you know, that time." Well, that time wasn't so great if you were black. Like,
no, it wasn't.
Like it. So
it wasn't.
So when was America so great? During World War I, when we had Japanese internment camps? Like, that's fucking it. We're not at the place where it was great yet for everybody. And I think that speaks to what you were saying, which is we have to dream. And I think it goes full circle back to what you said at the very beginning, which is people see us in a certain way, right? One of the things that we may be number one in confidence, but you know what? To really go topical here, Kanye West may have thrown his hat in the fucking 2020 presidential ring, but that motherfucker, tell that kid who didn't have money to eat, tell him that he was never going to have a fucking ranch where he was going to have giant church things that people were going to fucking tune into from all over the world because he was a multi-billion-dollar recording artist and entrepreneur who also was married to a multi-millionaire, and they had beautiful, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're right. We do have to dream again, but I think that the dream cannot go backwards. I don't think, you know what? If the dream went fucking backward, make America great again, if time was not linear, then we would be in like Slaughterhouse-5 and we'd all have like the ability to just see through the fourth dimension, and time would be actually be a flat circle. It's not. We see it moving forward. So we can't go back. There's no reason. And Jon Stewart, I will end with this, had a quote where it's loosely paraphrased. It's on my Instagram page if you want to find the exact one. But he says, you just want somebody to give you your country back again. But the truth is, it was never yours in the first place. So no, like, not make America great again. And I don't mean just this administration. I mean, in general, if that's your vibe, forward. Use the things that made us great. The space race, the fucking, like,
there you go. And that's it. What you're talking about, John, I want you to hop in. I'm so sorry.
Go. I love it.
But
just whipping that whiskey down.
Yeah. But here's what's interesting, right? About what you just said. It's like taking those great moments and then going forward towards like making it great. Like I really, and this is the imagery in my head, right? Everyone knows the high school quarterback that now has a job at Subway, and maybe he was amazing, had a good play, and he's never let go of that play. And you're looking at this washed up version of what was once this amazing or somewhat subpar quarterback, because his story's in his head. So his stats may never show it, but in his head, he was the shit. oh man, you remember, yeah, it was 3rd and 5, and I threw it to Jon, and then Jon caught it and went in for a touchdown. It was the best thing in the world, man. It was great. God, those days, wouldn't it be great to do that again? And in reality,
now I'm doing it.
And he can, And now he's doing it?
Now I'm doing the nose.
And he can never, even if he wanted to, go back and have that moment again. But what he can do is he can become an amazing football coach, and he can raise up generations of quarterbacks who have those moments and say, listen, son, I didn't get a chance to play pro, but I want to coach you and believe in you that you can go to a D1 college. And I want to see you progress moving forward. And I think that as a nation is the mindset moving forward. It's not about us, right? It's not about me and you, Colt and Jon. It's not about It's not about us being like the spotlight, right? We have to do this for the generations coming. Like, we have to do it for your kids and your kids' kids' kids and your kids' kids' kids, because I don't want to fucking wake up 20, 30 years from now and someone is telling my great-grandson about fucking race relations and why he has to put his hands a certain way when a cop comes around. I don't want to live in a reality in 20 years from now where that's what the fuck he's being told and taught. I don't want that. I don't want that. I think it's bullshit. I don't want it. It has to fucking change. It has to fucking stop. So, sorry. But, yeah, sorry.
You don't need to apologize for that.
Yeah.
You don't need to apologize for that at all. And I'll say this. What you're talking about is inclusivity with that dream. It's the dream for a great America. Make America great, period. Mm-hmm. Make it great for everyone. And you know what? You shouldn't guess who else didn't want that? Your fucking grandparents.
Correct. Yeah.
And to bring it full circle, unfortunately, one of the things that we need to do to keep that from happening, in my opinion, is vote. He's got the finger up on the nose. So that's the thing, though. Like,
full circle, baby.
Having that moment of accepting that, like,
yeah.
Look, and Jon, you hit on this earlier. If voting rights like just weren't a thing, if nobody was worried about that and like everybody had an equal vote and it was just going to be fair no matter what, then gerrymandering wouldn't be a thing.
Right.
It wouldn't exist. There would be no lines drawn because it wouldn't matter. It would just be everyone come out, vote, now that. Like, that would just be it. But instead, we've got system upon system upon system upon bureaucracy upon system built in to keep certain people from voting so that we make sure it's fair. I don't know really how that works. I don't know what the math is there. I'm not a doctor. I think, Brandon, you hit on something really, really, really important, which is we're not treating the nation as we want to. Oh my God.
It was a serious moment.
It was. It's all right. I'm gonna drive it back. I'm gonna pull it back in. Woo-sa. Woo-sa. We are not treating the nation as we would treat our family. What did we talk about in the Father's Day talk? We talked about how our goal is to just be better than the generation that came before us and to hope that the next generation is better. Make America great again. I'm not to harp on that, but just that concept, like regardless of political affiliation, that concept goes, I want you to be better than I am, but not as good as, like, not really, because you're never going to be as good as me. You just got to get you're not even as good as your grandpa, but because your grandpa was way better than you. And the point is, we're supposed to be building up. We're supposed to be including more people. We're supposed to be growing. Yeah. And I'm with you. I don't want to wake up 20 years from now and see not only are we where we are now, fuck me, what if we're back? What if we went back? No, thank you. Jon.
Well, I mean,
I done did it to you now. I got a 2-finger hook on the beer. Like, I'm in.
No, I mean, I love what you guys are saying, and I think it's true that we get to create what the future looks like. We have to let go of whatever the past was and this image of what this great America used to be. And it's like, we get, how you said, we get to make America great, period. And it's for us through conversations of what we're doing right now that will inspire what does that look like? Because it is a group conversation. It is us getting together and saying, how do we do this so that everyone feels like they're being a part of this and we're all benefiting? And I think there's a lot of conversations hard conversations we have to have as a country to be like, because the thing is that's kind of crazy is we have all the tools, the people, the resources to be an incredible country. We could be number one across the board. Not that it's a competition with anyone else, but it's like if we wanted to, we could be the best in education. We could be the best in healthcare. We could be the amount of countries that look at the U.S. for answers because we have the resources, but yet the wrong people are at the top and the wrong agendas are being fulfilled right now and the wrong motives. And I think that's, I mean, this could be a conversation for another day, but it's like the capitalistic mentality that made America what it is because it allowed everyone in the sense to have their own business and everything. We took it too far. And I think these are conversations we all need to have to be like, what does America look like where we can all function and we can really be an amazing country for everyone? Like, because if we go back to what America was in the beginning, was literally people migrated to America because they're looking for something better. And that's why so many people come to America that are not citizens. They're looking for something better from wherever they're leaving. Now, immigration is another conversation. There's different reasons for why people leave and come here. But going back to the essence of what America was about was they were looking for a different opportunity. They were done with being the control they're having back in Europe and didn't want that life anymore. And so they came to create something for themselves. And I think we can all continue these conversations, contribute to the society, and like voting. Voting is one of the many pieces, but like we all just do our part to creating a better world and better country. I mean, we can all win. We can all win and have the life we want for ourselves.
I mean, I know you got to go because I know you got that other call, but I'm just saying like, that was pretty good. That was a pretty nice little wrap up on it. Gents, as always.
Put the camera back on you. We're going to have a reaction right now.
I love your reactions, though. I just keep staring at your beautiful face. All right. Is there any last minute thoughts, Brandon, that you want to get out before we head on into the great whatever yonder of YouTube yonder?
Two things. This is to you cannot, I think we just have to stop calling people, like you can't just call someone a racist because they disagreed with you. And it's one of the most irritating things that I see. It's like now this word is just being thrown around where it loses its value. It loses what it actually means. I grew up in a place where racism was real. Like it's not some fantasy flighty idea of like, oh, you bumped me in a grocery store, you're a racist. No, this is flat out like you're getting followed by a truck, you know, at 10 o'clock at night. Like, what are you doing around here, boy? You don't belong around here. That kind of like reality, like there's prejudice, there's discrimination, and then there's racism and actual hatred because of, or don't think you should exist or you're less than because of the color of your skin. Really think about that before you call, like words have power. Like, maybe you just bumped into somebody. They had it like you don't know what they were going through before you saw them, but because they're white. And also don't act like we have to stop acting like because you're black that you're not racist towards white people. Like you're racist as fuck. Like so the hypocrisy of it does not line. That's not everybody. But for what I'm seeing, I just want to challenge and charge like, yo, if you're trying to create a solution, don't become the fucking problem. Don't become the problem, because how do you expect someone to really get on your side and become an ally when it's Karen this and white this, and just because you're white, you're automatically, you know, by default, if something happens that you don't agree with, you can just throw this card out. And they're like, dude, what are you talking about? I just gave 10 grand to some foundation that you don't even know about, but you caught me when my husband and I just got into a fight leaving the grocery store and you were acting like a bitch, so I called you a bitch. But now I'm a racist because I called you a bitch. No, you're being a bitch. I'm calling you a bitch. I'm not defending anyone. I'm just saying, like, you really don't know what the fuck someone's going through unless they straight up call you to your face, like, you the most derogatory terms you could ever think of and wish that you were dead, or were like threatening you with like a noose or whatever. Like, don't just go throwing the word around. Second thing I want to say real quick is this goes with our overall theme of refinery, right? Guys,
hold on 1 second.
Go ahead.
All right, John, I know you got to get out of here because you got another
Oh,
bit.
no. Oh,
No.
Sorry.
Are you
go.
good?
I'm sorry.
All right, cool. Let's go.
Because we're the refinery, this isn't about going back to what men used to be. This is about moving forward. That's all I wanted to say. That was it.
Goddamn slow clap.
Love that.
Come on now. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, how do we do this? Gallery view. Is that everybody? Can y'all see? We got everybody?
Nope.
Nobody?
Nope, just you. I just got Colt.
Well, I apologize for everything switched around. It's hot. Something just changed. Now Brandon's where John was, John's where Brandon was. Doesn't matter. John has to go. This has been a fucking awesome talk. I really, really dig this. I already have, for the first time, the idea for next week. I'm very excited about this. Yes. I mean, technically Brandon gave it to me. It doesn't matter. Okay, everybody. Hey, if you want to see more videos like this, you definitely want to subscribe here. And if you want to see more of the refinery, you're going to go right here. And if you want to see just like, I don't know, like games and like our live shows and stuff like that, probably right down here, like that one. I would just recommend this one. I'm just saying, this is very nice. Brandon, just go like this. Yeah, right where Brandon is. All right. Love y'all. Talk to you later.
Peace.
John, have a great meeting.